Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great Friday. Got lots of NHL news to discuss, so make sure that you stay tuned in to this episode until the end. And be sure to follow the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on all your podcast streaming platforms. So on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. We are with you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So be sure to follow the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Really helps me out in growing the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. And for those who are not following the podcast, be sure to do so you won't miss any of the latest episodes of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, and you won't miss the latest NHL news. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started to the NHL news for today. We'll start things off by recapping the Washington Capitals and Florida Panthers game from yesterday. So Brad Marchand, he notched 1,000 career NHL points in the Panthers' 6-3 win over the Washington Capitals on Thursday. He had 2 assists in the game to reach the milestone, and his assist was on Seth Jones' power play goal, in which he got his 100 career NHL goal on the power play. And he had an assist, and Brad Marchand had an assist on Eetu Luostarinen's empty net goal, and that got him 1,000 in career NHL points. Eetu Luostarinen also had 2 assists in the game for a 3-point night. But Brad Marchand became the 102nd player in NHL history to reach 1,000 career NHL points, and the Panthers moved to 9-7-1 the season following the 6-3 win. It still feels weird to me, even though that Brad Marchand has been on the Panthers for maybe a year and a half now. I'll probably say a year because he didn't play the last few games with the Panthers in 2024-25 regular season because he was out with an injury. He made his Panthers debut, I believe, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it still feels weird to me to see Brad Marchand in a Florida Panthers jersey. I'm used to seeing him, like everybody else is, I'm used to seeing Brad Marchand in a Boston Bruins jersey. And I'm not a Boston Bruins fan. I'm a Blackhawks fan, but I do miss him on the Boston Bruins. I wish things worked out well in Boston, and I wish that general manager Don Swedish would have gave him an extension so he can retire as a Boston Bruin. He can end his NHL career with the Boston Bruins. So it still feels weird to see him on the Florida Panthers, but at least he won the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers last year. So he's got 2 Stanley Cups in his NHL career. Of course, his first Stanley Cup obviously being with the Boston Bruins. The Bruins won the 2011 Stanley Cup against the Vancouver Canucks. And I wish they would have won the 2019 Stanley Cup against St. Louis Blues, but unfortunately it was because of Jordan Binnington that year that the Blues won the Stanley Cup. I was cheering for the Bruins to win the Stanley Cup against the St. Louis Blues because of the Blues-Blackhawks rivalry, but St. Louis had a Cinderella underdog season that year and they won the Stanley Cup. But yeah. Unbelievable career for Brad Marchand, and like I said, he's the 102nd NHL player in history to reach 1,000 in career points. Certainly unreal. Of course, the majority of his points in his NHL career coming with the Boston Bruins. But more game news on the Panthers and Capitals game. Sam Reinhart, he scored twice in this game. For his 9th and 10th goal of the season. One of his goals being a power play goal, that happening in the second period. He also had an assist for a 3-point night. Evan Rodriguez and Cole Schwinn also scored for the Florida Panthers as well, while Daniel Tarasov made 37 saves on 40 shots, faced the net for the win. This is his first win of the season, so he has not had a win at all this season. Tarasov puts on a great performance for his first win of the season. For the Capitals, Rasmus Sandin had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. Brandon Duhaime, the Florida native, he had a goal this game as well for Washington. Justin Sordiff scored the other goal for the Capitals. For Brandon Duhaime, this is his third straight game that he scored a goal in. He didn't score in the first 14 games to start the 2025-26 NHL season for the Washington Capitals. Logan Thompson made 22 saves on 27 shots faced in net. And crazy thing about the loss for the Capitals, they outshot the Panthers 40-28 in this game. I know the Panthers are the defending Stanley Cup champions, but when you play this type of game and you're outshooting the team by a big margin, you would maybe 9 times out of 10, if not 50, if not 5 times out of 10, you would expect that team to come out with the win since they dominated the majority of the game. But the Capitals, they end their 4-game road trip with a 1-3-0 record. So the only road win coming against the Carolina Hurricanes on, Tuesday. And the Capitals moved to 8-1 of the season following the loss, so right at 500. They return home to start a 3-game homestand against the New Jersey Devils Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Panthers continue their 5-game homestand against the Tampa Bay Lightning Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And man, oh man, that's going to be a good game. In the preseason, when these two teams faced each other, they had, I believe it was like a combined 150 or something penalty minutes in total. I could be wrong on that one, but when these two teams met in the preseason, it was crazy. Fights were being thrown, game misconducts were given, a lot of game misconducts were given, so it was just a crazy preseason. I don't know if this is their first meeting of the regular season between the Panthers and the Lightning, but those preseason games when the Panthers and Lightning faced off against each other, it was just crazy. It was madness during those preseason games. I believe, like I said, 150 total penalty minutes for each team during those preseason games, or maybe during one of those preseason games. But again, I could be wrong on that. Yeah, but it's always good to see the Panthers and Lightning face off against each other. It's the Battle of Florida. These two teams faced off in the playoffs before. Obviously, the Lightning taking the first 2 playoff series against the Panthers, and then the Panthers took the last 2. They took the one last year and then the one in 2024, obviously, to win the Stanley Cup. But moving on from the Capitals and Panthers game to the Leafs and Kings game. So Quinton Byfield, he scores the overtime game-winning goal as the LA Kings win 4-3 in overtime against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday. He scored on a one-timer from the right face-off circle off of a pass from Drew Doughty. That goal coming in 35 seconds into overtime. And this goal marked the Kings' comeback because they were down in this game. And they came back and won it. This is the 3rd straight win, by the way. And they moved to 9-5-4 of the season. The Kings, like I said, they were down 2-0 to the Maple Leafs in this game by the end of the first period. Of course, the Leafs had goals from Bobby McMahon and John Tavares. And then the Kings got goals from Warren Fogle and Kevin Fiala to tie the game up at 2. And then the Leafs get another goal from John Tavares at the end of the second period, scored on the backhand for his 11th goal of the season. And then Alex Laferriere had a goal in the third period to tie the game up at 3 with 6 minutes and 50 seconds left to play in the third period for his 4th goal of the season. And then we all know what happened. Quinton Byfield wins the game in overtime for the LA Kings for his 4th goal of the season. So a comeback win for the LA Kings in this one. Darcy Kemper made 12 saves on 15 shots faced in net for LA. And for the Maple Leafs, Dennis Hildeby made 33 saves on 37 shots faced for the Leafs. Of course, the Maple Leafs are still without their captain, Austin Matthews, and their goaltender, the starting goaltender, Anthony Stolarz. Of course, they left the game in the Leafs 5-3 loss to their arch rivals, the Boston Bruins, in Beantown on Tuesday. And things have gone from bad to worse for the Maple Leafs. Like I said, they're without their captain, Austin Matthews. I don't know how long. I think I saw that he's expected to miss a week. I could be wrong on that. But hopefully I think I saw the NHL.com article that he's expected to miss at least a week. So hopefully he'll still be available to play for Team USA in the Olympics. And then Anthony Stolarz, the starting goaltender, is also out with an injury. And the Maple Leafs lose their 4th straight game. And they move to 8-2 of the season. But the Maple Leafs head to the Windy City to play the Chicago Blackhawks on Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Kings continue their 6-game road trip in Ottawa against the Senators Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And I can't wait for that Maple Leafs and Blackhawks game because I am a Blackhawks fan. And also, it's good to see 2 original 6 teams going at it, especially on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. That's going to be a great game to watch. But moving on from Toronto to Montreal, Stars and Canadiens. Casey DeSmith makes 24 saves in the Stars' 7-0 shutout win over the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday. So Stars put a touchdown victory over the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday for Casey DeSmith. This is his 13th career NHL shutout and his first shutout since January 25th. And Dallas moves to 11-4-3 of the season. They were 6-1-2 on the road this season as well. They won 4 straight games. They won 8 of the last 10 games. And fun fact, this is the second time in franchise history that the Stars have scored 7 goals in a shutout win on the road. The first being since the Minnesota North Stars, because they were called the North Stars before they became the Dallas Stars. They were called the North Stars. And the North Stars had a 7-0 shutout win in Pittsburgh against the Pittsburgh Penguins on January 12th of 1983. Jason Robinson had a 3-point night in this one. He had 2 goals and 1 assist for a 3-point night. He has 11 points in his past 7 games, 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points in his past 7 games. Colin Blackwell had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. Wyatt Johnston scored for Dallas in this one, that goal coming on the power play. And fun fact, he became the youngest player in Stars and North Stars franchise history to score 100 goals in his career for the Stars and North Stars. He's 22 years old, and he got it done in 183 days. Esa Lindell, Tyler Seguin, and Alexander Petrovic had the other goals for Dallas. Radek Foska finished with 3 assists in the game. And speaking of assists, Dallas Stars defenseman Miro Heiskanen notched an assist in this one for his 300th career NHL points. So congratulations to Miro Heiskanen on that mark. Hate to see that he didn't play with Team Finland last year for the Four Nations. Obviously, if Miro Heiskanen did play for Finland last year in the Four Nations, they would have had a stronger or somewhat of a stronger defense, but their defense was weak last year and they really didn't do too much of anything. But yeah, I hate to see that Miro Heiskanen was out for Team Finland for the Four Nations last year. Hopefully he's not going to be out this year for Team Finland come the 2026 Olympics. For the Canadiens, Jacob Dobes allowed 5 goals on 13 shots facing net in the first 2 periods for Montreal, and so Sam Montembeault stepped in and he made 4 saves on 6 shots in relief in the 3rd period. And the Canadiens, they are 1-2-2 in their past 5 games, and they dropped to 10-5-2 this season. They're still in a good spot though. I think they're still in first place of the Atlantic Division, but let me check right quick. I believe they're still in first place in the Atlantic Division. Yes, they are. So they're actually tied with Ottawa and Boston with 22 points. Montreal's first in the Atlantic Division with a 10-5-2 record with 22 points. Ottawa is second in the Atlantic with a 9-5-4 record with 22 points. And Boston, who played Ottawa last night, Senators had a 5-3 win against the Bruins, by the way. They're 3rd place in the Atlantic with 11-8-0 record with 22 points. So each one of those teams are going to be hoping to get 24 points to jump ahead one another in the Atlantic Division. And speaking of the Atlantic Division and the Montreal Canadiens, they conclude their 4-game homestand against the Boston Bruins on Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That game will air on NHL Network and will be a Hockey Night in Canada game to watch. And the Bruins and Canadiens, two teams with a long history, a historic rivalry between these two teams. Probably my favorite rivalry in hockey. One of my top 5 favorite rivalries in hockey, and like I said, probably my number 1 favorite rivalry in hockey between the Boston Bruins and Montreal Canadiens. It's always good to see these two teams go at it. 2 original 6 teams, 2 teams with a lot of history against each other, and as a franchise in general. They met in the playoffs a bunch of times, so it's always good to see these two teams go at it, especially on Hockey Night in Canada. So that's going to be a good game to watch between the Bruins and the Habs. The Stars head home to face the Flyers Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. But moving on from Montreal to the Mile High City, as the Colorado Avalanche hold off the Buffalo Sabres for a 6-3 win at home on Thursday. They win their 5th straight game. They're 7-0-2 in their past 9 games, and they move to 12-1-5 of the season. Martin Necas, 4-point game in this one. He had 2 goals, 2 assists for a 4-point night, so he was certainly the first star of the game for sure. And fun fact, Martin Necas became the first player in Avalanche in Nordique's franchise history to score within the opening minute of a game 3 times this season. And Nathan MacKinnon, he had an assist in this one to extend his point streak to 11 games, in which he has 23 points during the span, 8 goals, 15 assists for 23 points during the 11-game point streak for Nathan MacKinnon. Gabriel Landeskog had a goal in this one. He scored his 250 career NHL goal and the second goal of the season for him in general. Gavin Brindley had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. Arturi Lehkonen and Brock Nelson also scored for Colorado, while Mackenzie Blackwood made 18 saves on 21 shots faced the net. And for the Sabres, TNT, Tage Thompson, he had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. Bo Byram scored in this one against his former team. Obviously, he did play for the Colorado Avalanche. He was with them during the 2022 Stanley Cup run and won the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. He was drafted by the Colorado Avalanche in the 2019 NHL draft, so he's played for Colorado before, and he gets a goal against his former team. I think he was in that trade with Casey Middlestad. Casey Middlestad went to Colorado, and then the Avalanche traded Bo Byram to Buffalo. So I believe that was the trade. I believe that was in, what was it? Probably 2023, 2024. I could be wrong on that one. But Jordan Greenway, he scored for Buffalo. Alex Lyon was pulled in this game. He allowed 2 goals on 3 shots faced the net, and so he was replaced by Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who made 27 saves in relief. And the Sabres, they have become the Buffalo Sabres that we all know today. They went from being bad to being somewhat decent, and then they are bad again. They lost 5 straight games in a row. They're 0-5-2 on the road this season, and they dropped to 5-8-4 of the season. Like I said, they were bad at the start of the season because they had a losing streak at some point during the start of the season. And then they had somewhat of a winning streak, so they were doing good after losing repeatedly to start the season, and now they're back to being bad. Still being the Buffalo Sabres that we all know today, and they probably won't make the playoffs again this year, and I don't know how long. I think the last time the Sabres made the playoffs was in 2011, so that playoff drought is going to go from 14 years to 15 years. At least don't see the Buffalo Sabres in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But the Sabres conclude their 3-game road trip in Detroit against the Red Wings Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So Patrick Kane will be facing off against his hometown team, the Buffalo Sabres. And the Avalanche continue their 4-game homestand against the New York Islanders on Sunday at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. But now it's time to preview the 2025 NHL Global Series. This will be between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators. And these games will be played at Avicii Arena in Stockholm, Sweden. First game will be today, this Friday, November the 14th. And the second game will happen on Sunday, November the 16th. First game starts at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The second game starts at 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time. And both of these games will air on NHL Network for you guys to watch. Team matchup for the Penguins and the Predators. The Penguins enter this game with a 9-5-3 record this season and are the favorites to win this matchup against the Nashville Predators. They have points in 20 of the last 24 games against the Predators, so that could be an advantage for the Penguins. And for the Predators, as we all know, they are struggling this season. They come into this game with a 5-9-4 record this season. They are coming off of a 6-3 loss to the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. Hard to believe that out of all the teams, the Predators had to be the team that the Rangers could get a win at home. So, but the Predators are in their losing ways. I think they lost like 4 straight games in a row, I believe. The Predators have lost, so they are looking to get out of their losing slump in Sweden. And speaking of Sweden, taking a look at some of the Swedish-born players in the Penguins and Predators. So the Penguins actually have 3 Swedish players on their team: Erik Karlsson, Rickard Rakell, and Emil Benstrom. The Predators have, I believe, 3 Swedish players on their team as well: Philip Forsberg, Andres Englund, and Adam Wilsby. So both teams have 3 Swedish-born players on their team. For the Penguins, this is their first European regular season trip in 17 years. Of course, the last one being in 2008. For the Predators, this is their first trip to Sweden. They have played in some of these global series before. I believe the last one being in Czechia that they played their last global series in. Taking a look at the special teams for these two teams heading to this one. Penguins power play is first in the league at 35.7%. Their penalty kill is 7th in the league at 84.3%. Predators power play is 21st in the league at 17.5%, and their penalty kill is 13th in the league at 80.7%. So the Penguins special teams could be an advantage to this one against Nashville, especially with the way Nashville has been playing away late. The Penguins could use special teams as an advantage to come out with the win in these 2 games of the Global Series. Take a look at goals for and goals against in the league. Pittsburgh is 10th in the league for goals for with 3.35 goals for. They're 27th in the league for goals against with 2.65. For Nashville, they're 31st in the league in goals for with 2.56. And they're 3rd in the league for goals against with 3.61. So, again, just not looking good for the Predators. And I'm surprised that they haven't fired Andrew Burnett yet. I heard somewhere on one of the podcasts I was listening to, I think it might have been the Daily Faceoff podcast, Morning Cup of Hockey, with Colby Cohen and Johnny Lazarus, where they had on Jeff Merrick for Morning Cup of Hockey. And I believe Jeff Merrick has said that the Predators are not looking to fire Andrew Burnett. I don't think Barry Trotz is going to make that move yet. But something needs to change for this Nashville group. I feel like they could go into a rebuild, and it wouldn't surprise me that they would be in the talks of getting Gavin McKenna based on the way that they're playing right now. Key players to watch for both of these teams. For the Penguins, longtime captain Sidney Crosby. He'll be one of the players to watch. He has 20 points in 17 games this season, 11 goals, 9 assists for 20 points in 17 games for Sid the Kid. Sidney Crosby is 2nd on the team in points, and he's 1st on the team in goals. Other players to watch for the Penguins, Erik Karlsson and Rickard Rakell. Obviously, they're from Sweden, and they're going to be looking to put on a great performance in their hometown. For the Predators, Philip Forsberg, of course, another Swedish-born player. I think he leads the Predators in points. He's first on the team in points. He'll be one of the players to watch. And then Roman Josi and UC Saros, even though UC Saros is Finnish, and I believe Roman Josi is a Swedish-born player. I think he is. UC Saros is Finnish, but there'll also be other good players to watch on the team as well. Penguins are the favorites to win the first game of the Global Series at -125. Predators are at +105. And the odds are presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Overall thoughts on this one? It should be a good Global Series. The NHL has these Global Series to grow the game of hockey and to expand outside of the U.S. and Canada. And so they have them in like Sweden, Finland, Czechia, just to grow the game of hockey and get more people into hockey as well. So this is good for the NHL to do. I hope they keep doing this. And the Penguins, they might use this as a statement win. Predators might use this as a turning point to turn things around for the season. It's going to be a 2017 Stanley Cup final rematch between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators. So it should be a good matchup to watch. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2017. Penguins shockingly score in the final minutes of Game 6. Patrick Holmquist with last-minute goal, then Carl Hagelin with an empty netter to seal the deal. And the Penguins repeat as Stanley Cup champions that year, winning 6 games. But it was a good run for the Nashville Predators that year as well, getting all the way to the Stanley Cup final. That was their first Stanley Cup final appearance in franchise history for the Nashville Predators as well. So a great run to the Stanley Cup final for the Nashville Predators. Wish that they would have came out with the win over Pittsburgh in the 2017 Stanley Cup final, but it is what it is. They had a great group that year. Even though the Predators did sweep the Blackhawks, which that part I was too upset about. Predators did sweep the Blackhawks that year in the 2017 Stanley Cup playoffs. But they had a good group overall. Pekka Rinne, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, PK Subban, Victor Arvidsson, and so many more. Mattias Ekholm. That was a great Nashville Predators group that year. Taking a look at the other games on the slate from Thursday, the Ottawa Senators, like I mentioned before in the Hockey Talk TV podcast, they won 5-3 against the Boston Bruins. So they put an end to the Bruins' 7-game winning streak. They blew a 2-goal lead, but they managed to recover for the win. And Shane Pinto scored in this game for Ottawa. He recently signed a 4-year contract deal with the Ottawa Senators. Detroit Red Wings win 6-3 against the Anaheim Ducks, so they end their 3-game skid. Patty Kane had 1,350 career points in this one. He had 2 assists to reach the mark. Obviously, like I said on the Hockey Talk TV podcast before, Patrick Kane is my favorite hockey player growing up. Still miss him in Chicago for the Blackhawks, but I hate to see him playing on the rival Detroit Red Wings, but he said that he wants to play on there based on the history that was there and, based on the history. And he certainly found his way in Detroit. He's played there for 2-3 seasons, so he's having a good time in Detroit, but we obviously missed him here in the Shy City. And Patrick Kane passes Matt Sundin for 31st place on the NHL's all-time point list. And he's 25 points away from passing Mike Modano for most points by a U.S.-born player. And for the Ducks, they lost 2 in a row after going on, a 7-game winning streak. And Leo Carlson's point streak ends at 11 for the Ducks. He had 20 points during his 11-game point streak, 9 goals, 11 assists for 20 points during a 11-game point streak. John Gibson did lead this game in the second period, and so Cam Talbot stepped in and made 10 saves in relief. John Gibson obviously played for the Anaheim Ducks before, so the first game where the Red Wings faced off against the Ducks at the Honda Center, it was a loss for John Gibson, Detroit. And John Gibson only got to play the first and part of the second period of this game, and so fortunately had to leave. And Cam Talbot stepped in. He made 10 saves in relief. Blue Jackets hold off the Oilers with a 5-4 win. Oilers won against Columbus 4-3 in overtime on Monday. Connor McDavid with that highlight reel goal, spinorama goal, trying to do like Patrick Kane and do a spinorama type goal, but that was pretty sick from Connor McDavid. Potential goal of the year candidate for that one as well. I still think Patrick Kane did the spinorama goal better, but it was good to see Connor McDavid pull off that goal as well. Obviously, Connor McDavid, one of the best players in the NHL, if not the best player in the NHL. He's one of the best players to watch in the league. Calgary Flames, they shut out the San Jose Sharks 2-0. Dustin Wolf with a 16-save shutout. Blake Coleman and Samuel Hazank had the goals for Calgary. Samuel Hansek's goal being a empty netter, and the Islanders went 4-3 in overtime against the Golden Knights. John Gabriel Pageau with a shorthanded goal to win it in overtime for the Islanders. Scored 3 minutes and 2 seconds into overtime. And for the Golden Knights, they lost 7 of the last 10 games, and they went 1-3-2 during their 6-game homestand, and they dropped to 7-4-5 of the season. They blew the lead against the Islanders in this one. Matthew Barzal, he tied the game up at 3 with 2 minutes and 37 seconds remaining in the third period. Scored on a one-timer from the left circle, assisted from Matthew Schaefer, who's going to be a Calder Trophy candidate at the end of the season. He also had the goal in this one for a 2.9. Always good watching Matthew Schaefer. I have him on my fantasy hockey team. He's going to have a great first year in the NHL. And the Kraken win 5-3 against the Winnipeg Jets, led by a 2-goal game from Jordan Eberle. And the Jets have lost 4 of their last 5 games. They're still in third place in the Central Division with a 10-7-0 record. And I believe they have 20 points in the Central Division as well. The Mammoth and the Blackhawks, 2 other Central Division teams, are tied with 20 points. They're in the wild card spot. But the Mammoth play Friday against the Islanders. The Blackhawks play Saturday against the Maple Leafs. I'm hoping for the Islanders to win against the Mammoth just so that the Blackhawks can, possibly win against the Maple Leafs on Saturday and then jump the Mammoth and the Jets for third place in the Central Division. Take a look at the NHL games on the slate for today. We got 4 NHL games on the slate, starting with the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Nashville Predators at 1:00 p.m. Central Time. First game of the Global Series between the Penguins and the Predators. And then the second game will be on Sunday at 8:00 a.m. Central Time. Both games will air on NHL Network. We did an in-depth analysis preview on this few minutes ago in the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. And then we got the Vancouver Canucks taking on not the Calgary Flames. Vancouver Canucks taking on the Carolina Hurricanes at 6:00 p.m. Central Time, followed by the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the St. Louis Blues at 7:00 p.m. Central Time. And then the final game of the night, the game that I was just talking about, New York Islanders taking on the Utah Mammoth at 8:00 p.m. Central Time. Hoping the Islanders can win against the Mammoth just so that the Blackhawks can win against the Maple Leafs on Saturday and then jump them and the Jets for third place in the Central Division. And hopefully, just hopefully, fingers crossed that the Blackhawks could go on a winning streak after, potentially winning against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast YouTube channel. Make sure to follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. We are with you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So be sure to stay tuned in for all the latest episodes of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. Make sure to follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio so you won't miss an episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast, and so you can stay up to date on the latest NHL news. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. Enjoy your weekend. Lots of NHL games on the slate on the weekend. Some intriguing NHL games to watch. And I'll see you guys on Monday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.